Happy New Year, I'm Rob B. With me, of course, is Rob D. And we are starting 2024 strong. Come on, everyone, let's go.
Welcome back to another year of the Property Podcast. It feels so good to be back. Hope you've had a wonderful break and you are ready to make 2024 a good one. Of course, at the start of the new year, you're wondering, what lies ahead? What's going to be happening in the property market? And this week, we are joined by some experts from around the world of property to help us answer just that question. And do make sure you stick around to the end, where we've got details of some extra special things that are coming your way in January. And of course, it's all free. It's a new year, full of hope, full of excitement, full of uncertainty. What is 2024 going to hold for the property market in particular? Well, next week, we're going to be making our own predictions, but we don't want to be out here on our own. We don't want to be the only ones looking silly. So we have asked some experts from around the world of property to give us their predictions. So you'll hear those in just a minute, and there is quite the range of views. But before we get into those, it might be worth rounding up some of the mainstream predictions, some of the big names, the ones you always see out there, the ones with teams of PhDs beavering away at spreadsheets to come up with the best forecasts they can. What's out there?
So let's do a roundup for property price predictions for 2024. The OBR comes in down 4.7%. Rightmove says asking prices will be down 1%. Savills are predicting a fall of 3%, and Lloyd's are predicting a fall of 4%. Rob, let's get back under our duvets. This year's not worth having. Well, maybe not so soon, because actually those predictions are from very respectable organisations, but those very respectable organisations were very wrong last year. So that doesn't necessarily mean you need to panic. Or does it? Because we have invited in some other experts to give you their opinions, and we have not vetted them. We did not know what they were going to say before. In fact, as we go through this podcast, it's the first time we are seeing their predictions. And let's kick that process off. First up, we have Akhil Patel. He was on our podcast last year talking about the 18-year property cycle and giving his insights on that very subject. So somebody who is constantly assessing the property market and very much bases it on the 18-year property cycle. Let's see what he has to say.
So my predictions for housing in 2024 is that prices will be going up, and in some areas perhaps quite significantly so. And the reason that I think that is, despite all of the enormous turbulence we've had over the last 18 months, prices have not really come down very much. I think we are seeing an easing of conditions, even though there are some pretty turbulent things going on. Certainly this should translate into lower inflation prints, and therefore, if not radically lower interest rates, certainly not higher ones, but more competition in the marketplace, which will squeeze margins on bank loans. In any case, I think this means greater availability of credit for people looking to invest in property. I think that the most significant house price increases will be seen in the areas which have had the greatest rental growth in 2023. And there have been some truly spectacular increases in rents in certain areas. In my area in Islington and London, the rents are up about 16%. And I've seen similar double-digit increases in other areas. I suspect that those areas will see the most significant house price growth. In general, I think that the marketplace will be much more buoyant. It'll be much more of a seller's marketplace as opposed to buyer's one that we've seen in 2023. And that means that it will probably be less tight, i.e. there'll be more stock on the market. So if you're looking to acquire a piece of property, you should see more availability, though of course not at lower prices, probably at higher prices. So those are my predictions for 2024.
Okay, so very different from the likes of the OBR and Savills. And it's worth saying that Akhil has been far more historically correct than they have. He made the call in 2020 that COVID would result in a boom in property prices, which not many other people were doing. I think perhaps none. It's perhaps worth saying that certainly Savills and Lloyd's, I don't know about the others, are seeing a trough in 2024 and are both saying that prices will go up again next year. So maybe this isn't as much of a divergence as it first appears. Maybe it's just a timing issue. But Akhil is certainly more aggressive because he's talking about prices going up significantly in some areas. Also, didn't say it directly, but hinting that he sees prices going up in London following rents going up so starkly there, which would be a big reversal if that turns out to be the case.
Next up, we have Anisha Beveridge, who's the head of research at Hampton's estate agents. So a big organisation with some big predictions.
We think that price falls will stabilise next year across Great Britain, and we're forecasting 0% growth in the final quarter of 2024, following a 2.5% annual fall in Q4 this year. Now, the main reason for this is because we expect mortgage rates to continue gradually falling from here on in. And that's predominantly because these new mortgage rates will increasingly reflect the expectation that the Bank of England will start making cuts next year. Incomes are also rising faster than inflation, which is good news for households. And so both of these things should make buying a home a little bit more affordable and will unlock some of the moves that couldn't take place over the last 12 months. There's also likely to be a general election next year, and while we don't think it will have too much of an impact on the mainstream market, data from previous events show us that it will probably weigh more on the prime end of the market, where households tend to be a little more sensitive to uncertainty and change. But that said, actually, both of the two main political parties seem to be fighting for this centre ground. And while we're still waiting to see their full manifestos, we don't really think that they'll be a million miles away from each other policy-wise, which should dampen any impact on the housing market. Now, looking a little bit longer term, we think that this shift to higher rates will mark the end of the current house price cycle, which began in 2008. And typically, London starts to lead the way around this point. So that's definitely something to look out for over the next few years.
It's interesting, this prediction, Rob, on a couple of levels. First, it's not as negative as some of the other big brands that we reported on earlier who put their numbers out. So 0% growth, or just flat. So that's interesting. But also a note on that she sees this as the end of the current house cycle, which began in 2008. Because that is really interesting, Rob, because we talk about the 18-year property cycle, and it's not quite 18 years. But she clearly has a belief in cycles. Also pleasing to hear that she believes that interest rates will start to come down this year. If that happens, that'll be very welcome. Are you ready to make 2024 the best year yet for your property portfolio? Maybe you've not started yet and want to push on. Or maybe you found yourself investing and then got a bit lost, like where's this taking me? If that's the case, then Property Hub Invest might be right for you. Property Hub Invest is our business that helps people who are big on ambition but low on time. For those busy people who want to build out a property portfolio, but for some reason, life keeps getting in the way. Well, if you are that person, then maybe Property Hub Invest is right for you. Check out Property Hub Invest by going to propertyhub.net/invest, having a chat with our team and seeing if it's a good fit.
Okay, let's move on and hear from Vanessa Warwick, also a podcast guest last year and the co-founder of propertytribes.com. Let's hear what she sees as happening this year.
It's really hard to say. I suspect there will be some stagnation, prices going down in some areas, and potentially prices going up in some areas. What I'm really saying is that's what the housing market does, even in very challenging times, because each street is literally a kind of macro market in its own right. So it's very hard to say. And to be honest, I don't think it's of that much interest to property investors, because most are in it for the long term. And we know that typically there is capital growth over the long term. But also, and more importantly, there are ways to force the appreciation through improving or developing a property so that you don't have to rely on capital growth. I do think tenant demand will still be extremely high. This is very positive for landlords. It means that rents are robust, and it also means that landlords have a wide choice of tenants to choose from, and that means that we can choose good quality tenants. My general thoughts on the market in 2024 is that the one thing that we can be certain of is uncertainty. We don't know when the next general election is going to be. We have a spring statement from the Chancellor, which may have even more tax cuts. or more things favourable to landlords. I think in these circumstances, you can just really take a leaf out of the book of a sailor. And that is that when you're in a sailing yacht and a storm comes in, you do something called heaving to, which is where you set the sails and the rudder so that you're basically just still on the water and you ride out the storm that way. And I think that's what landlords may have to do, certainly in the early part of 2024, is to heave to. Sometimes it's good to do nothing and just wait and see how things turn out. And obviously, we've had some significant U-turns in the latter part of 2023, including energy efficiency, and that Section 21 will not be removed until the courts are reformed. So it's really best sometimes to wait and see. That's what I'll be doing. I'll be continuing to consolidate and improve my existing stock, and I will continue to educate myself and try and be a better landlord through that education and try and make wiser investment decisions. But I think the fundamentals of buy-to-let remain strong, and it's a case of keep calm and carry on.
Well, Vanessa's not committing to a number, but she's making a really important point, which is that every street is its own micro market. We've said countless times that you never buy the UK average. You can't. It's not possible. You have to buy a property in an area. So while the national data can give you an indication, and obviously the whole country is affected by the same economic conditions, the same policies, it's what's happening on the ground in your target area that really matters.
Also, Vanessa is predicting uncertainty. I think she'll be right there, because I can't remember the last time we had a stable year. So uncertainty is the new normal. What uncertainty means for the property market, we will see. But Vanessa's right. There's a lot going to happen in 2024 and a lot that could impact property prices, which is why we had to invite a mortgage expert on to the podcast to get their views. And I'm pleased to say we got Kelly Rule back on the podcast. She's been on the pod many times previously, and she has been brave enough to give her predictions.
House prices were stable up until about 18 months ago. And since the base rate took a hike, we've been witnessing down valuations of 10 to 20% throughout the entire UK, mainly down to nervousness in the uncertain market. This has meant investors have either had to pull out or hold fire or go ahead putting in extra funds into the deal. The end of 2023 was looking more positive with no further increases, which in turn should mean we will start seeing some reductions. With that, there will be confidence back in the market in hopes these down valuations will be a thing of the past and will start to stabilise. Will we start seeing an increase in house prices during 2024? I'm unsure. I would like to think so, but I'm more hopeful of seeing house prices return to where they were. I'm really hoping to see the base rate stabilising around the 4 or 4.5% mark. With that, I hope fixed rates on limited company buy-to-lets, as an example, will be around that point. This will be a great achievement for investors, although not back to the 2 to 3% mark we've all been used to since the credit crunch in 2008-2009. But more deals will work at this level than what they have been during 2023. And therefore, the future is looking bright for this year.
Kelly's put in a number on interest rates there, Rob, which is brave. I'm glad she's been brave enough to do that. And it's a number that, if it turns out to become reality, I'd be quite happy with.
Yeah, Kelly clearly has not listened to our episode where we reviewed our predictions, where we got the base rate horrendously wrong. So I don't know if it's wise to make predictions, but like you say, if that turns out to be the case, then that is a very positive sign for property. The term that you've seen all over the place over the last couple of months with people reviewing 2023 and looking forward to this year has been unexpected resilience. That's the phrase. It's true in the housing market. It's true in the economy. When there was supposed to be a terrible recession and then there wasn't. And then there was supposed to be a mild recession. Then there was supposed to be a mild but prolonged recession and there wasn't. And of course, all these things can still happen. But the point is they haven't yet with rates where they are. So if rates do start coming back down even a little bit, as Kelly suggests, then that will be very positive indeed. Right, one more prediction to go. Who let this next guy in? It's Rob Wiggans. He heads up the sourcing team at Property Hub. So he's out there on the ground talking to developers literally every working day of the year. So if there's anyone who should have an accurate read on where the market's at, it's him. No pressure, Rob.
I think it's safe to say that 2023 was the year of uncertainty, and the market certainly had a very foggy head. Everyone was unsure where the market stood. This wasn't helped by the huge COVID growth the year before or the years before, bookended by Liz Truss policies. I think there'll be far more positivity. Transactions will be up and far more certainty in 2024, with the catalyst behind this being the ceiling of interest rate rises likely now being hit, and that element of uncertainty being taken away, and light at the end of the tunnel for rates coming down over the medium term. Inflation is easing, which further helps. We have to remember there is pent-up demand in the market for those wanting to enter it, and have been desperate to get on the ladder, but have held back because of mortgage rates and affordability. To add to this, year after year, there's always an undersupply of new build property, which naturally enhances growth further. With more certainty and confidence in lending and rates being lower and coming down, this will stimulate those waiting in the wings to buy. Lenders are always very keen to lend, as they have been in recent times. We always have to remember the period of low inflation was the abnormal period. Interest rates and mortgage rates are now in a normal period of history. There's potential for a new government next year as well, with the general election around the corner, and bring even more positive to the market and economy with policies that are introduced. Overall, I'm going to go for a 3% rise next year, and it's going to be a stepping stone for further growth in 2025.
Really interesting from Rob. And as you've already said, Rob, there's too many Robs now involved, two is enough. But as you said, Mr. D, that Rob is on the ground and he is probably closest to the action of all the people on the show, including all the organisations we mentioned at the top of the show. So I actually think there's a tremendous amount of credibility in what he sees and what he expects. Now, he doesn't have a crystal ball and he may be way wrong, but I think if you had to say, what is the market doing today, he'd be able to give you the most accurate update out of all the people that we've listened to this morning. We will have to see, though, if that gives him an advantage with the numbers, but he is feeling positive about the market. It's a really interesting snapshot. You, of course, will always see the same old organisations touted in the press for their property price predictions, and the press normally picks the most negative. That's why you see OBR often quoted, because they've been quite negative recently. Capital Economics, we haven't even bothered to cover this time around because it's just so farcical, and what they predict of always by far the most negative. In fact, last year they said property prices could fall as much as 20%. It was harder to be more wrong. However, they are the ones that normally get the headlines, so I'm really pleased that we're able to bring people onto the show who are a bit closer to the action, who maybe have slightly different views to some of those organisations, but to give you a more rounded view of what this year delivers. Now, Rob, we will be making our predictions next week. We have not ducked out of this year. We are also putting our heads on the chopping block. We will make our predictions, and where we won't be unkind to this group of people, we won't go back and review their predictions at the end of the year. We will review our own, and we better make sure we do pretty well. I know we can't guarantee that, but knowing that we are going to review it at the end of the year puts a lot of pressure on us.
It does, but you won't let that stop us from having opinions, including us having opinions on things that we have no right to know anything about whatsoever. We're just going to put it all out there. So thank you to everyone who's brave enough to contribute this week, and we will be joining you soon. So that's next week. But Rob, you don't need to wait that long for more property goodness. You don't even need to wait until next Tuesday for Ask Rob and Rob. We've got more for you starting tomorrow.
Yeah, our Hub Extra this week is us, because we are delivering you more in January. We promised this in December, and we are delivering on that promise. And tomorrow we start a 4-part series to set you and your friends and family up for success in 2024 when it comes to property. And actually, you can use this content to apply to different areas of your life. These steps that we will take you through will set you up for success. And our YouTube channel is delivering more content in January as well. So make sure you're subscribed to Property Hub UK. Now, chances are you already are. You're hardcore, you're here, you're starting the year strong like us, and you are committed. But you will know other people. You will know friends, family, or work colleagues, or people you just pass in your local town or village who have an interest in property. They know you're interested, but you can share this with them. It's a gift that is free. Give it to them. Start their year off strong as well. If they prefer YouTube, get them to sign up to the YouTube channel. If they prefer podcasts, or they haven't discovered podcasts yet, hand this over to them. Maybe they don't want to listen to predictions, but these podcasts we will deliver will make a meaningful difference to everybody who wants to set themselves up for success this year. It really, really will. And that's what we're committed to this year, like we are every year, is delivering the most value possible. So get your friends, get your family. If you've got a passing interest in property, get them onto the podcast. that could be a gift to us. Let's share this out as much as we can. The more people you can share it with, the more it grows, then the more people that find it. That's what we want this year. So we're doing our part. We're going to give you more content than ever before. Let's get started strong in 2024. Let's go.
Let's do it. So thank you for joining us. What a wise decision you made to start your year. I hope we'll see you tomorrow for the first part of that new series. So we will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.